Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack what is honestly an absolute masterclass in modern digital age suspense. We're breaking down a short narrative called The Shadow Behind the Screen. And what really fascinates me about this piece isn't just the scare itself, though it is terrifying, but it's the underlying mechanics. It's how it builds this creeping dread using the very devices we literally hold in our hands every single day. So we're going to take a really analytical, maybe slightly eerie look at this and dissect exactly why this story manages to get under our skin so effectively.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to genuinely ask yourself this question. If a stranger texted you out of the absolute blue, "Don't look behind you," would you look? Right away, we're placed squarely in the protagonist's shoes. It's the perfect hook, right? Because it plays on these deeply ingrained psychological impulses we all share. Our brains are basically hardwired to investigate threats, but doing so in this specific scenario, it feels like springing a trap.
Section 1. The Setup. The Midnight Isolation.
So to really understand why this impending scare works so incredibly well, we first have to look at the setup. Picture this. Our protagonist is a 15-year-old boy named Arav. He's totally alone in his room, parents are fast asleep, and the house is just dead silent. Now, this is a hugely relatable baseline for almost anyone today. We've all been there, right? Wrapped up in our own little digital bubbles while the rest of the physical world is knocked out. And the story anchors us specifically to this exact time, 11:47 p.m. That late-night hour is absolutely crucial for establishing this deep, heavy sense of isolation and vulnerability. Because at 11:47 p.m., the outside world has essentially stopped. The noise of the day is completely gone. And in that kind of silence, even the tiniest anomaly feels magnified times 10. It primes Arav's and, by extension, our nervous system for a massive shock.
Notice the brilliant contrast the writer paints for us here. On one side, we have digital safety. Arav is hyper-focused entirely on that small glowing screen of his phone, just scrolling and watching videos. But it's a completely false comfort. On the flip side, we have physical vulnerability. By locking his vision onto that tiny illuminated rectangle, he is literally blind to the dark, unseen room stretching out directly behind his chair. This is where the horror truly lives, honestly. It's in that very human tendency to completely ignore our physical periphery the second we get digitally engaged.
Section 2. The Escalation. The Digital Intrusion.
This is it. This is the exact moment the boundary between the digital world and physical reality completely collapses. An unknown number breaches Arav's safe, glowing little bubble. The inciting incident drops as a sudden, chilling message: "Don't look behind you." Now, Arav's initial reaction is naturally just skepticism. He frowns, types back, "Who is this?" And that's a perfectly grounded human response. We almost always default to logic first. We assume it's a wrong number or, a stupid joke. But actually, this momentary rationalization, it only serves to make the subsequent drop into terror that much steeper.
After a really brief pause, the stranger insists they're absolutely serious. Arav, still desperately clinging to logic, asks why. And the answer just shatters his assumption of a prank completely. Because it's standing right behind your chair. Pay attention to the physical reaction described here in the story. Arav's heart starts hammering in his chest. The room noticeably drops in temperature. The digital threat has officially claimed a physical coordinate right there in his bedroom. Let's move to and see how this builds. Look at how aggressively this timeline ramps up. At 11:47 p.m., that first text hits. Just seconds later, the stranger doubles down. Instantly after Arav asks why, the threat's exact location is revealed. And, moments after that, the threat jumps from being just words on a screen to a physical reality. This terrifyingly rapid escalation gives the victim absolutely zero time to process or logic his way out of what's happening.
And then he hears it. Tap, tap, tap. The pacing of the whole narrative slows way down right here, just to emphasize this chilling auditory scare. The threat isn't just a spooky text anymore. It has actually manifested a slow, physical sound directly behind him. The boundary is completely broken now. The digital horror is inside the room.
So as his hands are literally trembling, a complete barrage of text messages floods his screen. It's getting closer. The story perfectly simulates this suffocating claustrophobic dread. He's frozen, and his phone, the exact device that invited this nightmare in, has ironically become his one and only source of information about the unseen horror creeping up his back.
The unknown sender basically becomes this twisted sort of command center. Don't move. The tension just keeps ratcheting up.
What you should really take away from this is how the narrative weaponizes Arav's own survival instincts against him. Every fiber of his being wants to run, but this digital voice of authority right there in his hand is paralyzing him with these commands.
Don't make a sound. By now, Arav is totally immobilized by fear. Tears are welling up. And right at the absolute peak of this unbearable, suffocating tension, the tapping sound abruptly stops. The room plunges right back into this deafening, heavy silence.
Section 3. Anatomy of the Scare.
So the crucial point is, well, I am just endlessly fascinated by the architecture of suspense. What we're witnessing here is a perfectly structured psychological operation. It's flawlessly executing the 4 steps of a classic jump scare. The writer isn't just throwing spooky ideas at the wall to see what sticks, they're methodically walking us through a carefully designed funnel of fear. Step 1, isolate the victim. It's midnight, parents are asleep. Step 2, introduce an unseen threat, the texts and the physical tapping. Now, to make Step 4, the big reveal, hit as hard as humanly possible, the author has to first execute Step 3, providing false safety, because you just cannot have a massive spike in fear without first lowering that baseline tension.
Section 4. The false relief.
Here's where the tension is artificially dropped to play a massive trick on both the protagonist and us, the audience. The story tells us that after the tapping stops, a full minute passes. 1 entire minute. Now, in a high adrenaline survival situation, 60 seconds of complete, unbroken silence? That feels like an agonizingly long eternity. But it's just long enough for the human brain to convince itself that the danger has passed and that logic has safely returned to the chat.
Finally, his screen lights up with a new message. It's gone. You can look now. Arav spins around. The room is completely empty. We read about his immense relief, that nervous laughter bubbling up. He actually sighs and says out loud, it really was a prank. He makes the fatal assumption that he's safe. That rubber band of tension we've been stretching this whole time, it's been completely relaxed.
Section 5, the climax, the final photograph.
And that is precisely when the story hits us with its devastating final twist. His phone buzzes one last time. But it's not a text message, it's an image file. And I want you to really picture the aesthetic of this terrifying visual. It is a full-size image. That is the only thing on his phone now. It totally takes over the screen, stripping away all the normal apps and familiar UI, leaving nothing but this full-size image that looks just like an old, grainy horror photo. And the photo shows Arav sitting in his chair, captured from inside his own room, literally just seconds ago. And towering directly behind him in the grainy, shadowy pixels of this macabre, old-school-looking image is a tall, dark figure with glowing eyes. The monster wasn't gone at all. It was right there, watching him breathe that sigh of relief.
And this brilliantly illustrates the horrific reality of his situation, because right underneath that terrible, full-size image, a final, chilling message reads, "You looked too soon." Instantly, the lights go out and Arav is never seen again. That whole wave of false relief, it was literally just a cruel trap to get him to turn his back to the screen and finally face his doom.
So we've broken down the isolation, the rapid escalation, that tricky false relief, and the utterly terrifying climax of this digital scare. But I think the true genius of this story is how it just kind of lingers in your environment long after you're done reading it. It manages to turn our constant companion, these glowing screens we stare at all day, into a beacon for unseen horrors. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If your phone buzzed right now in the quiet of your room, would you check the screen or would you check the shadows directly behind you?